Yeah, but at one point, I just said, "I can't do this anymore, and I'm going to pass out, and you're gonna have to pull this baby out of me. I can't do this anymore."
Mhm.
And my midwife took my hand and put it down, and I could feel my baby's head down there.
Mm.
And my husband said that it was like a night and day difference from, like, despair and giving up to just sheer determination, and I will get this baby out, and I will
Mhm.
meet this baby, and I roared my baby into the world.
Yeah.
And it was just the sweetest thing having my midwife put my baby up on my chest, and I'm gonna cry. Um,
Mhm.
after over 2 years of trying for this baby and of
Mhm.
losing a sibling and, all of that, like, the amount of emotion in that moment was huge, and hearing my little baby cry, and he reached up and grabbed my finger right away, and it
Oh.
was just the cutest, sweetest thing.
Hey, you're listening to Empowered Births at Home with me, Esmeralda, the home birth doula, as your host. I am a mama of three, fellow home birther, and entrepreneur. I am completely obsessed with birth, more specifically, home birth. And this is a podcast where women share their empowering home birth stories, along with the journey that led them down the path to home birth. Whether you're currently pregnant, planning a home birth with your first or fourth baby, or even just someone who is a complete birth nerd like me, this is the podcast for you. So let's get into this week's empowering home birth story. We are on episode 22 today. We will be chatting with Sarah about her home birth story after experiencing a previous loss during pregnancy. She will also be sharing with us some resources and support that she provides regarding pregnancy after loss. So, if you are someone who thinks you may need some type of support like hers, make sure you listen to this entire episode and stay till the end so you can hear the wonderful resources and support that she provides. Let's go ahead and bring Sarah on.
I'm Sarah, and I am married to Colton, and he's the most wonderful man on the planet. I'm convinced of it. Um, and we have a baby in heaven that we named Peanut because that
Oh.
was the nickname that we'd been using until he passed away. And so
Mhm.
Peanut just stuck. And then we have a rainbow baby, and he is napping. So if he wakes up, I
Mhm.
might have to run out and get him. But
Yeah.
he is 14 months. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and we live in the mountains of North Carolina, um, like rural Western North Carolina, and
Mhm.
we love hiking and we're really, really busy. My
Yeah.
husband owns a construction company and I'm the office manager for his company, and I'm also a doula and wear many hats. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. I love to hear it. And so, how did you get into the option of like deciding to have a home birth?
Yeah, I would almost say that like the option of home birth began with my own birth. I'm a twin, and my twin sister is 2 months older than me, so which
Mm.
is a whole weird story in and of itself,
Yeah.
but was a high risk hospital, kind of traumatic pregnancy and birth situation.
Mm.
She was born vaginally at 24 weeks. I was born emergency C-section at 33 weeks. And then the sister right after me was a hospital VBAC, unmedicated, totally normal birth. And then the 2 kids after her were also hospital vaginal births, just totally normal and wonderful births, but my mom had to birth in the hospital because of her high risk situation with my twin and I.
Mhm.
But I grew up hearing birth stories and thinking birth was exciting and awesome and wonderful, and I knew I wanted to be in birth someday. And then when I was 9, my parents' best friends had their baby in my parents' bedroom. Um,
Oh.
and they lived in the mountains of Colorado, and the midwives couldn't go there during the winter because of the fear of getting stuck in on the other side of the pass and not being
Mhm.
able to get back home.
Mhm.
And there were no midwives closer to my parents' friends, so they came down to Denver and stayed with us, and their son was born in our house,
Mm.
at, like, 43 weeks and really long, like, 48-hour labor, but
Mhm.
I just thought it was so cool that babies could be born at home, and
Yeah.
At 9 years old, I was like, "That's what I want to do, and that's what I want to be and to have," and I actually, like, I went to school for midwifery, and
Okay.
didn't finish and became a doula instead. So when it came time for my husband and I to have a baby, I knew that I wanted a home birth,
Yeah.
and I live in a state where they don't license home birth midwives,
Mhm.
but I live right on the border of 2 states, and the other state does license home birth midwives, and it just so happens that the aunt of the baby that was born in my parents' bedroom years and years ago is a midwife about an hour from me in that other state, and she's a licensed midwife
Oh,
there.
okay.
So I've known her for my whole life, and the plan was whenever we got pregnant and had babies, then we would be using Amy as our midwife.
Mhm.
So yeah, I guess that's the story of how I got into the home birth world. Kind of
Yeah.
a different way than a lot of people, I think, but
Yeah, that's
yeah,
actually really interesting. I love it because I have my own kids who have been at my home births,
yeah,
and I'm hoping that they're at my next one when that happens. And so I've always thought like, oh, what's going to be their like perspective of birth because
yeah,
they're growing up around it. So it's really nice to hear like your perspective because you did grow up around like that kind of birth and
yeah.
seeing it at a young age. That's really cool.
Yeah, so it was a little different than, like, somebody who really, really grew up in home birth, like, because their mom was a
Mhm.
midwife or a doula or something like that. Like, that wasn't my family. My mom is
Mhm.
not a medical person.
Yeah.
But we heard the stories from other people. I was just thinking about
Mhm.
this yesterday. We knew several people that had home births when I was a kid,
Okay.
and it was kind of just it was a normal thing to us, even
Mhm.
if our mom wasn't able to have home birth herself. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, so we got pregnant in November of 2020, and I called Amy, this friend who's a midwife across the border right away, and was like, "Amy, I'm pregnant. Can you be my midwife?" And she was like, "Sure, let's get you on the schedule." And so I was like 4 weeks along when I called her. I was like, "I
Mhm.
have to be on your schedule now," like,
Yeah.
because her calendar fills up so fast, and I was so afraid
Mhm.
of not getting on her calendar. And then so I found out I was pregnant the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and then 2 days before Christmas, I had some spotting, and I called the OB's office in my town and just went
Mhm.
there because it was closer and faster to get there than to go the hour across the border down to see my midwife. And they did an ultrasound and found out, sure enough, my baby had died. There was no heartbeat. And so they offered me, if you want to just miscarry on your own at home, we'll let you do that. If you want to take the medicine to do that, you can, or you can schedule a D&C. And I I was already a doula at that point, and
Okay.
I wanted the closure from being able to have a birth. Like, no matter when you deliver a baby, it can be 4 weeks, it can be 40 weeks, you have to
Mhm.
actually deliver a baby. There is actually a birth involved. So I chose to miscarry naturally if that was gonna be possible for me and to stay home, and it was still 2 more weeks before my body went into labor. But because
Mm.
I was a doula, I knew what it was when I went into labor. I was
Yeah.
having contractions, I checked my cervix because I'm a nerd like that, and I was dilating, and, like, everything was going smoothly in the way that birth goes.
Mhm.
Until it wasn't anymore, and I lost so much blood that I passed out in our bathroom at home, and my
Mm.
husband had to take me to the emergency room, and they delivered my baby there. But I was able to go through some labor and at home, and that was part of closure for me was, "Okay, I birthed this baby, I delivered this child,"
Yeah.
even if it was a teeny tiny little bitty baby.
Mhm.
So for us, it was a long journey to get pregnant again. It was almost 2 years of trying again before we found out we were pregnant with our rainbow baby. But it was kind of almost the exact same thing that the moment I found out I was pregnant, I was like, "I have to call Amy," because she had been a support through our loss, and I was like, "I want her to be our midwife. If this baby makes it to full term, I want Amy for our midwife, so I'm gonna call
Yeah.
her and get on her schedule," and I told her that I was pregnant before I told my own family. So, my husband and then my midwife were the
Yeah.
2 people that knew. And eventually we did tell everybody else, but yeah, our having a home birth midwife for pregnancy after loss was really important and really helpful for me because she knew my history, she knew my story, and then she also knew my family because she'd known me a long time. So she was able to have that one-on-one conversation that a midwife has with a client that
Yeah.
an OB doesn't have. And
Mm.
she was able to answer a lot of my questions and to talk through a lot of my fears and help me to release some of that trauma and some of the fears that I had from loss.
Yeah.
And it was really helpful to be able to transition into, okay, this is a new pregnancy and a new baby and a new birth. So part of the complications of living in one state with my midwife living in another state and my state not legalizing midwives and all of that,
Mhm.
we knew that we would have to deliver in the other state.
Yeah.
And so our original plan was just to get an Airbnb or a hotel or something like that, and we weren't sure how that was gonna work out. I knew a doula who owns Airbnbs over there and was probably going to call her and say, "Hey, can we use one of your Airbnbs for birth?" And I knew she was gonna be okay with that. But because I knew my midwife's family so well,
Mhm.
she talked to her family, and her aunt happened to be out of the country for our whole due month.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and so her aunt, Aunt Bonnie, said, "Why doesn't Sarah just use our house and they can come down? They can come whenever they want to. They won't have to worry about coming in labor.
Yeah.
They can use our house and they don't have to leave right away either. They can do some of the postpartum recovery in her house." And so that's what we decided to do, which was awesome. Like, it was the best case scenario for us that we possibly could have done. So, I asked my mom to be my doula.
Mhm.
She's not a doula. Not real like, not she's not a doula in occupation, but
Okay.
she's a doula at heart, if that makes sense. Like, she has
Mhm.
the personality and the experience and everything to be able to be a doula if she wanted to.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to. And I said, "Would you please come to my birth and be like my doula?" And she cried when I asked her.
Aw.
But I live on the East Coast, the Southeast, and my parents live in the Mountain West. And
Okay.
so my mom came when I was 37 weeks, and I didn't have my son until 41 weeks. So
Mm.
she just stayed and she helped me nest and all of those things. She helped me make dozens of freezer meals and get things all ready for baby. And then he was born on a Sunday. So starting like Wednesday, every night I would have really bad Braxton Hicks, think I was probably going into labor, and then wake up in the morning and would be gone. So Saturday, my cousin had a bridal shower and we had family coming literally from all over the world. Like, she's a missionary kid, so her parents came in from the country that she grew up in, and
Yeah.
we had cousins from everywhere come in for this bridal shower. And my contractions started at the bridal shower, and I don't know how to explain it. Maybe it was just intuition, but I was like, "Oh, these ones are real. These ones aren't this isn't prodromal labor. This is real labor."
Mhm.
But I'm not gonna tell anybody because I know that early labor can last forever.
Yeah.
So I labored through her whole bridal shower, didn't tell anybody, didn't tell my mom, no one.
Mm.
And then after the bridal shower, my mom brought me home and went back to the place that she was staying. And I told my husband, "I think I'm in labor. Can we just go walk somewhere to try and like get contractions going and just walk?"
Mhm.
But it was raining really hard outside, and we lived in a tiny one-bedroom apartment, so there wasn't any room to walk in our apartment.
Mm.
So we went to the grocery store, and we walked 4 miles up and down the aisles in the grocery store, just trying to get labor actually going.
Yeah.
I think it's so funny, like, it was, like, 9 o'clock at night, and we're walking up and down the grocery store aisles, and all the stalkers are looking at us like, "What is going on?"
Yeah.
When a contraction would come, I would have to stop and breathe through it, but, I mean, really, it sounds weird to say, but labor was easy at that point still,
Mhm.
and I kept saying, "This can't be the real thing because this is too easy." So, we went home, and I took a shower and went to bed and woke up about 1:30 and was like, "Okay, I can't sleep through these contractions anymore, and
Mhm.
I can't get my mind off of them anymore, so I'll go ahead and start timing them." And it got to the point where they were, like, only 3 minutes apart, but they were not strong. And I was like, "This just doesn't feel real because it's not very strong. I
Mhm.
don't know what to do." So I woke up my husband. He had us like, we called my mom, and my mom was like, "That sounds real to me." So we got in the car and we drove down to the house where we were gonna deliver the baby, and it was an hour drive. And I was talking through contractions still. I was cracking jokes. I was like, "This doesn't feel real to me yet." And we got to the house and like, my husband and my mom went back to bed, and I laid in the bed and just kind of stared at the ceiling and counted contractions and talked to my baby, and,
Yeah.
like, it was really peaceful and chill. And then as the morning progressed, my husband was like, "Let's just call the midwife and see if she'll come and, like, see what she says." So we called Amy, and she was on her way home from another birth. And she's like, "Well, I'll just stop in. It doesn't sound like you're in active labor to me. It sounds like you're probably just in early labor, but I'll stop in.
Yeah.
We'll see." And when she did come in, she asked me if I would be comfortable with a cervical check. And I was like, "Sure, why not?" So she
Mhm.
checked and she's like, "You're about a 4, but your cervix is really posterior, like, it's pointing at your back." And I had been seeing a chiropractor pretty regularly through my whole pregnancy, and she was
Okay.
like, "Call your chiropractor," 'cause they did our chiropractor does home visits during labor
Mhm.
if moms ask him to, and so it's a husband and wife duo, our chiropractor. So we called the chiropractor and they came right after church that Sunday,
Mhm.
or mass for them, they're Catholic. And they came straight, and Dr. Sam adjusted me during labor, and it was like the switch that flipped everything. And then I was like,
Oh.
"Oh, it's real now. This is real labor." And like, it went from being really, really easy and not feeling like it was real to, okay, this takes my full attention now.
Yeah.
And I still it sounds weird to say, but I still can't say that it was really painful yet, but it was intense. So my husband filled up the birth pool, and about the time that I got into it, my mom was like, "I think we should probably call the midwife again." And she came and she just took one look at me and she's like, "Yep, this is real labor." And she had a student and an assistant that both came. And she actually slept in a back room most of my labor because she had been at a birth all night long. And that birth was a fetal demise that she had gone to the hospital with the mom for.
Mm.
So she was grieving as well as just exhausted. And she, like, her practice is set up to where she wouldn't have had to be at our labor. She could have sent a backup midwife, but she
Okay.
wanted to be at our labor because she knows me, and
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So, I really appreciated having her there, but
Mhm.
was like, "You go ahead and just go sleep if you need to, because this isn't going that fast yet, and somebody can come get you when we need you."
Yeah.
So, I labored in the birth tub for a while, and at one point, like, I must have made the pushing sounds, you know what they are,
Mhm.
because all 3 midwives came running, and they were like, "Are you pushing?" And I was like, I might be, I don't think so." Um, and they kinda watched me for a second, and, I mean, it probably was 30 minutes or so that they watched me, and they were like, "No, she's not pushing, she's just making all the funny sounds." So they left again and
Mhm.
left me with my mom and my husband. And then at one point, the student was like, "Hey, Sarah, I think the water might be slowing down your labor a little bit," because, like, I was falling asleep during contractions. Like,
Mhm.
I was exhausted too. So she was like, "Do you want to just do like 5 contractions on the toilet?"
Mm.
And I got through 1 contraction on the toilet and was like, "I can't do this. I can't do this." And I
Mhm.
think that's where transition hit. Like,
Okay.
it got really, really hard on the toilet, and, like, I was screaming everything that was coming to my brain. I said that I was gonna punch Eve in the face when I got to heaven. I was mad at my husband for just laughing at something silly. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, it was intense labor at that point.
Yeah.
And the midwife said, "Hey, Sarah, do you wanna just go, like, would it be okay with you if we did a cervical check just to see where the baby is?" Because, like, because my body is weird, and she was
Mhm.
concerned that he was stuck under the
Okay.
pubic bone
Mhm.
because I have a hip injury from when I was a teenager that
Mhm.
affected the way that my pelvis was shaped a little bit. And
Yeah.
So she did a cervical check, and sure enough, he was stuck under the pelvic pubic pubic bone. That's the word.
Mhm.
And she even said, "Sarah," like, I was starting to push, and she was like,
Mhm.
"Sarah, I never ever tell moms this, and I never do this, but it might be best for you to push on your back so that we can use labor to get him under the pubic bone, just
Mhm.
because of the way that your body is shaped."
Yeah.
And I trusted my midwife, and that actually being on my back felt the best to my body. Like, I couldn't
Okay.
imagine being in another position at that point. And I was like,
Mhm.
"Yes, let's go ahead and push on my back." So I pushed like 45 minutes, I think. And being a doula, I knew a lot of things. And all of my like doula training was coming to my brain. And I was like, if I was the doula, this is what I would tell myself. As I was saying, I can't do this, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Um, but I felt myself poop during labor, and I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, this means that I'm pushing effectively because I pooped during labor," and I was
Yeah.
so excited about it, which is so silly. Yeah, but, at one point, I just said, "I can't do this anymore, and I'm going to pass out, and you're gonna have to pull this baby out of me. I can't do this anymore."
Mhm.
And my midwife took my hand and put it down, and I could feel my baby's head down there,
Mm.
and my husband said that it was like a night and day difference from, like, despair and giving up to just sheer determination, and I will get this baby out, and I will
Mhm.
meet this baby, and I roared my baby into the world.
Yeah.
And it was just the sweetest thing having my midwife put my baby up on my chest, and I'm gonna cry. Um,
Mhm.
after over 2 years of trying for this baby and of
Mhm.
losing a sibling and all of that, like, the amount of emotion in that moment was huge, and hearing my little baby cry, and he reached up and grabbed my finger right away, and it
Oh.
was just the cutest, sweetest thing. So, yeah, that's my home birth story.
Oh, that's amazing. I love it. It's just so magical. Like, I can't even explain it. Probably exactly how you felt in
Yeah,
the moment. It's like unexplainable.
yeah,
Yeah, that's just so amazing. I love how you kind of talked about when all the midwives ran to you
yeah,
because of the noises you were making.
yeah.
That's something a lot of people don't realize is like birth workers can tell by
Oh, yeah,
just the noises that you're making if like you're close to having a
yeah.
baby or
Oh,
not
yeah,
close. And a lot of times, even when you're in labor and you know those noises, you don't really notice the noises you're making yourself.
yeah. No, and I
So,
didn't. I was like, "Why is everybody here all of a sudden?"
yeah. Yeah, so it's funny to, like, be on the other side of it because you know when you're on the
Oh,
other
yeah,
side of it, but when you're in it, you don't even realize. I remember for my own births, I'm like, "Was I even loud? Like, I don't remember being loud," and they're like, "Oh, you were loud."
yeah, that's so funny because I felt like I was not in control of myself, like, I screaming, hollering, shouting, and my midwife was like, "Wow, you were really composed and you did really well." And I was like, "What? That was not composed."
That's funny. I love it so much. And so now you said that you are also a doula.
I am.
Are you a doula for like every location or just like home births? So what
Yeah.
kind of doula are you?
I do all locations. I specialize in pregnancy after loss, so that's really,
Mhm.
like, my niche. And most pregnancies after loss, people have home birth or hospital births,
Mhm.
but every once in a while, I get to do a home birth, and those are my favorite. So
Yeah.
I do love hospital births too, and I do support those, and I support births with interventions, but
Mhm.
I prefer home births. They're just the oxytocin flow in a home birth is the best.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And you just said that you specialize in pregnancy after loss. So are there any services like doula services that you do with that as well?
Yeah, I do in-person doula services if you're in the Greenville, South Carolina, or Asheville, North Carolina areas, but most of what I do with pregnancy after loss is virtual. So I do virtual coaching. I have a texting only coaching support program thing. And then I do virtual doula that's like from the moment you find out you're pregnant or that you hire me all the way through a couple weeks postpartum that is birth plan and answering questions through pregnancy. And then I'm on call for those moms virtually, but they can call me on the phone when they're in labor anytime during labor. So, yeah, I offer
Yeah.
a wide variety and wide range of support in that.
Mhm.
But
That's
most of it is
awesome.
virtual just because it's a narrow niche, but people
Mhm.
all over the world fit that niche.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. That's amazing. I love that you do specialize in that because I
yeah.
feel like it is something that really does need more support. And it's not very like narrowed down, like you said. Normally, it's just like kind of a bigger character of like doulas or support that they're getting,
Yeah.
and not really people who are specialized in it or know like what that person is going through. So, yeah, that's really big. It's
Yeah.
amazing that you're doing that.
It's I don't know. It's weird to say that it's my calling because nobody really feels called or no one feels called to grief and
Hmm.
all and anxiety and all that comes from losing a baby.
Yeah.
But once you've been through it,
Hmm.
then there are some of us that are like, "Okay, I'm called to help other people through that too."
Hmm.
And that's where I'm at. That I've been through it and survived it, and I want to support other people through it. So,
Yeah, that's amazing.
yeah.
And so if anyone wants to connect with you or just find you anyway, how can they do that?
And my Instagram is at PAL doula, so PAL for pregnancy after loss doula. And then my website is pregnancyafterlossdoula.com.
Mhm.
And then I
Okay.
have a podcast as well. It's called the Pal Doula Podcast. And it's a pretty new podcast. I think our 17th episode just aired this week. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's new, but we're gaining traction.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I'll go ahead and leave all of those links below. So if anyone wants to reach out to you or needs resources like what you offer, then
Yeah,
they can go ahead and find you.
I would love that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening.
How magical of a home birth story that was. Just absolutely amazing. And the way that she described how she felt after her baby was born and being able to actually hold them is just so sweet, and it could bring tears to my eyes, but we won't go there right now. So I'm just so happy that someone like Sarah brings that type of support to women who are in the trenches of it and are feeling all of the grief from loss during pregnancy or are currently pregnant and dealing with all those anxieties and worries from their previous loss during pregnancy. And I'm just so glad that she is here to help anyone who may need it. So if you are one of those people, please reach out to Sarah. She is absolutely amazing. Like I said, her links are down below if you need them. So please reach out if you do need it. If you are currently planning and preparing for a home birth, then I'd love to share with you more information about the Empowered Home Birth course. This is a home birth based birth course, and inside this 8-week program, you will receive educational videos and weekly emails filled with additional resources for you to prepare for your empowering home birth. Once you purchase the course, you also get perks such as access to my entire resource library and private community chats. To enroll, click the link in the show notes and get started on the journey to your empowered home birth. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to share with any family or friends who may benefit from these empowering stories. Also, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and review to help others who are searching for this information find this podcast. I'll see you next week for another empowering home birth story.